Hello, ladies and gents. We are back for another Hotspur Huddle. Hopefully, you can hear us. We've had a little bit technical issues, which happens most weeks at the moment with this silly software. But we're live, we're direct, and we're ready to dissect lots of different things. I didn't mean for that to rhyme either. But Wes, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm all right. Apart from the sound issues we were both having, which was causing us undoubted amounts of stress just before we were about to go live. But yeah, no. Other than that, I'm all good, all cushy, and yeah, looking forward to be back. That is for sure.
Indeed. And we have got a lot to go through because there's been a lot of rumours, a lot going on this week, which I'm sure we're going to dive into. But before we do, we need to let the people know that obviously this show, the Hotspur Huddle, is sponsored by the one and only Kofa. So Wes, I'm going to let you fire away and do your thing.
Yeah, no problem. So, Kofa or Kickoff Football Academy are a coaching business in the Milton Keynes area, providing sessions for young girls and boys within the area and also surrounding areas as well. Lots and lots of different things and sessions that we have on at the moment. Obviously, it is summer holidays, so our main focus is on our football camps, which we still have some spaces for if anybody is in the area and would like to effectively a few days, a week, 2 weeks. Yeah, send them our way because we will look after them for you. So if you have a child that you think might be the next Delhi or the next Leah Williamson, please send them our way because we would love to help them with their football skills and on their footballing journey.
Lovely stuff. So make sure you go check out Kofa. But Wes, let's dive into this. Obviously, Darren is already in the chat live and direct. So thank you, Darren, for joining us tonight. But let's begin because obviously there's been this big rumour that's floating around about this forward coming into the club, and it's been heating up over the last couple of days, and that is Solanke. Now, I believe the fees kind of dropped to 55. But what do you kind of make of it all?
Well, let me put it this way to you, Holly. If I said to you, we're going to sign a striker for £55 million plus add-ons, great record at youth level, indifferent record at senior level, and has no senior international experience, would you sign them?
Oh, it's difficult, isn't it? But then if you told me, his track record last season,
yes,
say something different.
yeah, which would then indicate one of two things: either because there was a change of style at Bournemouth last year, in terms of how they play, so he's either reacted really well to that, or it's a case of he's had a bit of a worldy season in the Premier League, and I think Solanke's been around the block, if you like, enough, despite the fact that he is only 26. I think he's been around enough to warrant being a bit more consistent with his goal output. So that's why, for me, I can't see why there's a lot of buzz around signing Dominic Solanke, because, like I say, he's got no international experience at 26, yet we're spending upwards of 50 million on that particular player. I don't like to compare clubs because every situation and every club is completely different. But if you were to look at West Ham, who have just spent, I think it's around 15 million on Nicholas Füllkrug, who was pretty much the go-to, like the super sub striker at the Euros. I know his age is a massive factor because Füllkrug's 31 and Solanke is 26. But if you take that out of it, I think that signing screams to me almost to be a little bit more shrewd. I think we're just other clubs are just really fortunate that West Ham's track record with strikers in particular is absolutely abysmal. Like, it is terrible. So yeah, I just can't understand for the life of me like why so many people are getting behind like us signing Dominic Solanke. Like, it's not one for me that kind of screams out that like, yeah, he's going to be the one to take us to that, that next level and where we want to get to. Unfortunately, so it's a bit of a no from me, I'm afraid, on that one.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, Darren makes a good point. It's probably the kind of English tax as well to why it's so high. I mean, trying to put a positive spin on it. Obviously, under the way Bournemouth played last season, do you think he kind of suit an Ange style of play? Do you think, or not? Not really.
I mean, I've done a little bit of I'd say research, but it's mainly me scrolling through Twitter, and there's a lot of people that are suggesting that he would be a good fit for Ange in the sense of his work that he does off the ball, and I get that that is a huge part of the way your teams play now. It's also there's a lot of work that you need to do off the ball as well as on the ball. But ultimately, he is a centre forward and he is a striker, so we need him to put the ball in the back of the net. Believe he scored the same amount of goals as Foden last year, and obviously Foden got Player of the Year. But yeah, I just think like I say, it's just a difficult one for me to kind of get behind because he's had one outrageously good season, and I don't know if that was down to Iraola changing that playing style for Bournemouth. But yeah, it's just I don't know if it's because when we got this brand spanking new shiny stadium, we were told that we can now look to compete with Europe's elite and almost try and compete for the best in class. And I look at Spurs' recruitment since the stadium has opened, and you would argue that there's probably been a handful at best of those what you would class as best in class types of signings. A lot of them haven't worked, which there's loads of reasons and different factors as to why they haven't worked, and I don't know if Levy is looking at that and thinking, right, we need to just tread a little bit more carefully. But at the same time, look, if the stats, the data, the scouting eye all are aligned, then I may have to just suck this one up and try and get behind it, to be honest.
No, I'm with you. And the thing is, like you say, he's had one brilliant season. There's been multiple seasons prior to this that he hasn't. But I think for me, the only thing that makes me have a bit of positivity around Solanke is that if he leaves Bournemouth and comes to a big club like Tottenham, he's got something to prove. Obviously, where it didn't quite work out at other big clubs, we won't name that club. But to me, it's kind of like he's also got a point to prove. He's not coming to Tottenham. He's going to slot right in the team. He's got to prove that he's worthy to play. I think that's the biggest thing for me. Because obviously Darren's mentioned here Tony, and I think I think we spoke about this before, but I think it's his attitude. Like if you said to me, right, you've got Tony or Solanke, yes, okay, Tony has proved that he's done it here, there, and everywhere. But with Solanke, it's always like he has got that point to prove. He's going to have that bit of fire in his belly. What do you kind of make of that kind of assumption?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, but I also think that both have a bit of a point to prove, to be fair. If you look at their respective journeys, like I look at Dominic Solanke's journey, and it's like at youth level, he was dubbed like the best striker that I think any academy coach, any scout or whatever has seen at academy level. Like he was that good. He was that good at youth level. And I know it's a completely different ball game when you go into senior football from youth level, but his numbers were stacking up like he was doing up Haaland numbers basically in youth level at Chelsea. And he was, like I say, pretty much being dubbed as like the best English centre forward around at the time. Got his move to Liverpool, and then that didn't go to plan either. And then I think, I wouldn't say it was a panic buy from Bournemouth, but Bournemouth had this thing of trying to buy young English or British players. So they did it obviously with Lewis Cook, Lloyd Kelly, and a few others in and around that particular time as well. And it's taken him a long time for me, Solanke, to get going at Bournemouth, which again for me is another concern in itself. I look at Tony's journey, and he's done the rounds. He's been around the lower leagues and everything else. Loan spells. Got a big move to Newcastle, which didn't work out. Went down again and rebuilt his career. But I just think, with Ivan Toney now, I think the only thing that he's probably got over Solanke is that international experience. But then I look at his career highlight is assisting Harry Kane in the Euros. Let's get it real, right? That's like the biggest and best thing that Ivan Toney's done, right? Some will say, Brentford fans will argue, well, it's the penalty to take them into the Premier League from the playoff final, etc., etc. But if he was to really like deep it, his biggest contribution is assisting Harry Kane in the Euros. So yeah, I know the striker market in particular is very, very sparse. Like there are no decent strikers about, and usually when you have a tournament as well, you're looking at maybe one or two to stand out, but there was none at the Euros, like absolutely none. So again, that made life really. I think that's made life really difficult for not just Tottenham, but a lot of other clubs as well. And I think, obviously, with West Ham mentioned earlier about Fulkrug, I think it was between him and Duran realistically. So they've gone with Fulkrug maybe as a bit of a stopgap to get a younger centre forward in, because who knows, in the next couple of years we might get a bit of a surge in centre forwards that are available. But I think, having said that, the market it's not great. I don't think at the moment. It feels like a really bad time if you're desperate for a position right now.
And that's the thing; it's good Spurs timing, isn't it? That we need a striker, and that's where we're at. But obviously, saying that, going the other way, obviously there was news floating about, and I know this has popped up a little bit in the past of Richarlison potentially moving to Saudi. Now, obviously, if there is that big fear around Solanke, and he is the one we're going for, it kind of balances it out a little bit. But like we kind of said off air, Wes, you said it kind of means like we've gone back to square one again. How do you kind of feel this rumor is? Is it a rumor? Could it potentially happen?
Yeah, I think it's a strange one, and I don't mean this in a horrible way or anything else, but usually with Brazilian, South American players, African players to a certain degree, you'll notice that they get quite a few moves early on in their careers. They get to a certain point, and then all of a sudden they'll get like this really like random move. A little bit like Oscar, for example, like came through in Brazil, went to Chelsea, was earning really good money, then has got this random move to China, has been there like ever since. But I think it's because of almost like where they're from, like back home. Obviously, they've come from like pretty much nothing, so they kind of get as much money in as they can, support the, town, village, favela, or whatever of where they're from, get the family and everything else out of there. And then by the time they're 28, it's like, right, their career kind of nosedives a little bit. So, it kind of does seem a little bit like that. But I think with Richarlison, look, his Spurs career hasn't really taken off, I think, as many people were hoping for, especially last year. He's struggled to stay fit, which hasn't helped his cause. And I think he's a player that we all really want to succeed, because he's an absolute shithouse, and he's the shithouse that we didn't know we needed until he turned up. But I think, given his age, and the sort of money that's being bandied about as well, I would look at if there was a decent offer like a 60 million from a Saudi, and he's a bit hit and miss anyway, Richarlison. Like, he's never out and out like sort of striker that's going to get you 20 odd goals. He's always sort of a 1 in 3 kind of player. So I think if that offer does come, then I think we might just go, do you know what? Yeah, we'll take it. But then that kind of puts us back at square one, because we've got one centre forward again. So I mean, yes, Lankshire's impressed in pre-season. Rumours of him potentially starting on the bench even against Leicester coming up. So whether he gets a little bit more involved, I don't know. Obviously, you've got Jamie Donnelly, who I know has been playing left back, but is an attacking player. So yeah, I think it's interesting as well that Vilis has gone out on loan, because there could have been some minutes for him. So I guess it just depends on what Ange and the rest of the coaching staff feel is the best option and the best solution for the team and the squad going forward.
I mean, it is an interesting one that obviously Velez has gone on loan. Because like you say, that's another striker kind of, not out the door, but you know what I mean, not amongst the team in the next season. Obviously, there was rumours that he was going to go to Saints, which, again, it goes back to the Bayern Hill thing in terms of, if we're going to get him Premier League ready, surely he should go, obviously, to another Premier League team sort of thing. I mean, what's your kind of take on him going to Espanyol, do you think?
Well, I mean, he didn't get many minutes at Sevilla. So I don't know if Spurs and Sevilla are ever going to do business again, because they don't seem to get on, or the deals just don't seem to work out really, especially in Spurs' favour. Sevilla might be laughing at us. But yeah, look, another loan. Spanish football can be hit and miss, I think, for loans. I think technically, if you look after like a technical player, then by all means have a look in La Liga. But I think if you're more of a physical player like Vilis, I think they do tend to struggle, because that's not the way that the Spanish football's played. So it does make life a little bit trickier. as well. But listen, as long as he gets regular minutes, I think he'll be happy. Spurs will be relatively happy. And then it's just all about down to him whether he can start getting some goals and things like that, and then come back from that loan spell with a point to prove of almost like, I feel like I'm ready now to do something in the first team at Spurs. But I feel like at Spurs we've got strikers that are all of a similar age and a similar age range, but they're not for now, which is really frustrating. And I guess that's why we're after Solanke, or we've been linked with Solanke, Tony, Gyökeres, etc., because they're more for the here and now. I think we've got some good young players coming through, but I don't think they're ready yet.
And I think that's the biggest problem. Like we said, there's kind of too much of a gap between the kind of players and crops of players we've got in midfield and defence, and then we haven't quite got the player that can do the business at the top. But obviously, talking about the business at the top, we have got news and rumours that Spurs will potentially be going after a winger as well before the transfer window shuts. Now, there's been lots of names. I know we talk about EZE all the time, but I feel like that one's kind of whistle in the wind, so to speak. I think the likes of Neto and potentially someone else maybe will probably be in there. But what's your kind of take on Neto?
Yeah, I mean, he's a player that I've admired for a long time. Absolutely loved him at Wolves, and think always thought he'd be a really good fit at Tottenham. I just love how direct he is because when he gets the ball, his first thought is, can I go forwards? Can I try and beat my man? He's a bit of a throwback winger in that sense. Even if he plays on the opposite side to his strongest side, he's still really direct. And yeah, I love the idea of Pedro Neto. What I don't like the idea of, though, is Pedro Neto's hamstrings, because they are made of absolute cheese string. So yeah, if he's playing like a high intensity type game, that is a massive worry. Obviously had a lot of injury issues in recent years, which again doesn't help. But I've always thought whenever he's played, I'm like, yeah, get me this guy. But yeah, I think obviously the rumours of a winger coming in are fairly strong. There's rumours of Manuel Solomon going out on loan as well, which I don't think anybody's really opposed to, because I don't think many of us know really what he can offer in a Spurs shirt. But then speak to a Fulham fan, they'll tell you he's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, obviously he was really unfortunate to get that ACL injury last year, and I actually thought that when Solomon did play, he looked a real threat because he's absolutely rapid as well. So yeah, but I love the idea of Neto, but it's just a case of how we're gonna get this deal done.
And it's like you say, it's just being wary of his past injuries. Like you say, with hamstrings, the way Ange plays football, having someone whose hamstrings go, it's not going to be something that's going to be good. I mean, obviously Darren says, does that mean we're not after EZE? I honestly think it's just not going to happen. I think it's too much of a complicated deal to happen. How do you kind of see it? Do you think Neto's probably the one now?
I don't think a deal in terms of getting a deal done for EZE, I don't think it's that complicated because he's got a release clause. So if anybody wants him, they just trigger that release clause, and then the club really can't say no. The thing with EZE for me is, would I have loved him? Yes, but I'd have loved him back when he was playing for QPR, and back before we signed James Maddison, because I think he's been absolutely brilliant. But I think from a Palace point of view, obviously they've sold Elise. Rumours that Gay's off to Newcastle, and I can't see Palace selling Elise, EZE, and Gay all in the same window. Having said that, the way Palace are recruiting at the moment to replace both Elise and potentially Gay is very good. So yeah, I think it's one of those where if we sign EZE, we're almost stockpiling, and I don't think we're a club that really does that anyway. Because I mean, if anybody's seen Lucas Bergvall play in pre-season, he's like, the second coming of anybody and everybody. He's like literally Christian Eriksen 2.0 pretty much. The way he's played and the way he's taken to coming into Tottenham has just been absolutely fantastic. So if we are to sign EZE, that means we'll have Maddison, EZE and Bergvall all kind of competing for the same spot, and I think that's too much from a Spurs point of view.
I think as well with the other youngsters kind of coming in and amongst that kind of midfield. Again, it's like you say, kind of stockpiling. And I know we talk about the here and now. Don't get me wrong, having Eze in the club would be amazing. But like you say, it might just be too much, if that makes sense, like you said.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about pre-season because obviously it's not quite over yet, and we do have Bayern Munich at the weekend. Now, obviously, when we played them the first time round, it wasn't as great. But how do you think we'll kind of step up, obviously, with this last kind of game before we play Leicester in that opening game?
Yeah, I think the first half in particular, we were awful. Like, we were dreadful. We couldn't put three passes together. But having said that, credit to Bayern Munich for the way they played, the way they pressed us. They were really aggressive in their nature. They really went after us and made life difficult. But I think second half, when we saw the introduction of our youngsters, we saw a little bit more, I think, personality-wise within the team. We saw a little bit more of what they could and what they want to do. I don't know if they're trying to obviously impress Ange or whatever, but I think all the youngsters that have come in have just played with absolutely no fear, which has been brilliant. Obviously, it's going to give Ange a massive headache. So yeah, I think we're going to have to step it up. Of course, we are. We've got this, our last pre-season friendly before Leicester away. I think having obviously Van de Ven, Romero back, Bentancur back. Even Lo Celso to a certain degree, I think that will help with squad and the team. Whether Ange goes full strength straight away will be interesting. Have to see, I guess, what the training week's like for those coming back. But yeah, I think obviously it's going to be a completely, well, I'm hoping anyway, a completely different type of game to the one we saw last week.
I hope so, because that was rough trying to get myself through it. But obviously, I forgot to mention as well that there's obviously a player that is potentially being given a senior contract, and that is Mikey Moore. Now, you said about the youngsters impressing in pre-season. He's definitely impressed. What have you made for him, and what do you make of obviously giving him this professional contract?
Yeah, I think it's been something in terms of his pro contract. It's been something that's been in the pipeline for a while. It's not like they've just all decided to sit round a table yesterday and go, "There's your contract, mate. Off you go." I think obviously there's been a lot of hype and talk about him last year, and I think the club were then looking at, okay, what can we do? What can we do to keep him? And I think, it was just a case of, all right, once you turn 7, there's your contract, but just sign it once you turn 17, which happens a lot at clubs. So yeah, getting his pro. I mean, most 17-year-olds don't really have pros anyway. Obviously, they're in their scholarship years, so getting in a year early always is interesting. But I think he's shown enough that he has the potential, if managed right, to be a very, very good player. And I think the only one I can really think of that got a pro a year early in recent times is Dele at MK. I know he got his a year early at MK. So, and we all know what happened, and then subsequently what has happened. So that's why I say it needs to be managed right, because as we've seen with Dele, you can reach the top, but you can fall very, very quickly.
No, and that's the thing. I think, like you said, it's been done the right way. Hopefully, he's got all the right support networks, this, that, and the other. But it is an exciting time to see Mikey Moore obviously being given that pro contract. And I think as well, we mentioned offware as well. It's probably isn't it the most expensive contract sort of thing that Spurs or our youngsters been given, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's one that Spurs have never given a 17-year-old or a teenager, I think, this amount of money, which seems to be a huge factor in a lot of things these days. Obviously, agents probably done well to go, look, this is what I believe my client's worth. He's an England youth international as well, and there's obviously rumours of the real big hitters in and around Europe sniffing, so he could have used that as a bit of a bargaining tool as well to sort that out, which wouldn't have surprised me either. So I don't know if Levy's probably had his pants pulled down a little bit with it, but like I said, I think the agent's done really, really well, and has been sort of pushing the club for a little while. So the fact that it's done, he's tied down for a little while at least, means that if anybody was sniffing, they're going to have to pay some big money, I think, to prize him away from Tottenham.
I think this is the thing for me, the fact that obviously they've recognised that he's a talent and they've been willing to obviously make that kind of record kind of deal to him. And I think that does kind of have me a bit more hope for the future, especially for next season as well. But I'm not going to dive too far forward ahead because obviously the season does start very soon. And I want to mention, obviously, that we are doing an FPL this year, which me and Wes every Wednesday will kind of go through and see who's performing the best, see which players have given the best kind of score, and just kind of keep a tab of it. But how are you looking forward to it, Wes? I heard it's your first time in it properly.
Yeah, I don't really do fantasy football, I'm not going to lie. But I don't know if it's because I've not had the time, because I think it can be quite time consuming. So I've always like fobbed it off a little bit. But I thought, do you know what, this year I'll give it a bit of a go and stuff. So yeah, I'm interested to see obviously how I get on. But the thing is, I kept batting it away. But every year people would go to me like, "Oh, Wes, who should I have in my fantasy team?" I go, "I don't know. I don't play fantasy," and they're really confused that I don't play fantasy football. But I have had a bit of a helping hand. My girlfriend has helped me out a little bit with the team, so we're hoping that it's gonna be all right, to be fair.
Lovely stuff. And plus, the thing with me is I always get bored. So at least if we go through it every week, there's a bit of accountability, because when I start doing crap, I lose interest. So at least with this, we can keep up to tabs with it. So if any of you want to join, there is a lot of you already in the team, in the league, sorry. Make sure the link is in the bottom of this video, so make sure you go check that out. But Wes, I think that's a wrap, because I think we've kind of dissected everything that's kind of rumoured about at the moment. I reckon we'll be back next Wednesday, especially to obviously dissect and analysis how we're potentially going to set up against Leicester. So thank you again, Wes. I want to let you tell everybody where you can find you. I'm getting my words all twisted at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, great to be back. Great show as always. Short and sweet tonight. But yeah, Twitter's at Wezo10, the unofficial Moussa Dembele fan account. Although, having said that, Versus, if anybody knows about Versus on Instagram and their captions, they woke up and thought about Moussa Dembele today, which was like one of the greatest things I've seen in a long time. So that was cool. Instagram's at Wezo32. Usually at a Spurs game, although I'm not at Bayern Munich. Tried to get tickets, but it was sold out. And has been sold out for a long time. So yeah, mental to think we're selling out a pre-season game that's also on the telly, by the way, as well. But I will be at the Everton game in particular. New seats for the new season, so looking forward to that as well. I'll be there with my dad. But yeah, like I say, usually going to be at Spurs games this year. We've got a lot of Sunday games, so we'll be interested to see how that works this year. And then, yeah, Kofa MK on socials for all the coaching stuff, and then I'm hoping to do some football content for the new season as well, because you bullied me into doing some last year, Hollie, so I want to try and keep going with that and potentially have a different take on a show and some video content as well for the new season. So WM32 football for that as well. And I think, Hollie, that is a wrap.
Bosh. I prefer that one. That one is better than the other one you did a couple of weeks ago. But no, it's been good again, Wes, to dissect obviously stuff. Hollie's Hotspurs is back next Monday. We're going to preview the season. We'll be back to the normal format with some guests on, so make sure you're there for that one. Then me and Wes will be a Wednesday, and then boom, I think I'm doing a watch along for the Leicester game, because obviously it's on a Monday, which is rather annoying. And then I'll see you at the Everton game, because it'll be good fun, which will be nice. But yes, make sure you obviously like, subscribe, all the good stuff, so you never miss a video. Like I said, this show is sponsored by Kofa, so make sure you check out Kofa as well. And I'm trying to find the video to say goodbye. But until next time, come on, you Spurs.
Come on.